Hi everyone, we've now finished with Christmas and heading into the new year, which is bound to be an absolute corker with everything that's going on. So I'm doing this series now. Well, I'm doing them from my bedroom, largely because we've got a full house over Christmas, so I've been relegated to the bedroom. And I thought I'd do a reading on Bob Mueller himself and see how he's holding up. You know, because that can't be easy, being in charge of an investigation of this size and scope, and with the whole world watching, and with Fox News and certain Republicans trying to do you in. So how is Mueller handling this investigation himself? So I thought I'd do one on Bob Mueller. So please keep up with the comments. If you go to community on this channel, you will see the comments from myself and each other. Keep that communication going. I find them really interesting, and I thank you very much for that. So this reading is about Mueller. Bob Mueller. Not the easiest job, Bob. Keep up. So Mueller. Bob Mueller. I'm going to do a block reading, which is a past, present and future reading for Bob Mueller. So I'm going to lay out 9 cards now. Okay. All right, so we have here past, present, future. So beginning with the past in terms of the investigation and himself leading it, he is a very deep thinking man. This is the center card of the reading, which I'll return to, but it's a man who thinks very deeply about things. But in the recent past, he and his team, he spends a lot of time thinking about the harvest. In other words, what have they collected? Will it be enough? Looking at the evidence they've gathered and pondering how best to use it. Right, so this is in terms of the strategies they're going to employ. They must have to make a great many decisions about what evidence to use to strengthen another case, or what evidence to leave out, because I'm sure they've got so much now. So huge decisions have had to be made. Remember, this is slightly past tense, so last few months. Also the card of nostalgia, and given that we're reflecting backwards, so looking back to what, I think in Mueller's case, looking back to what really motivated him, his emotional, this is a Cups card, his emotional motivation, as opposed to his legal and intellectual reasons for doing this job. This is evaluating his past emotional background and why he felt it was so important. This is the 10 in the major arcana, the Wheel of Fortune. This is the card of karma and the card of destiny. So for Mueller himself, I think when he was thinking about these things and thinking about why he was doing it, he feels very strongly that he was destined for this particular role at this time in history. So he has a very deep conviction about the importance of this investigation, and there's no doubt it's hugely important. This is his current row here, the Magician, and this is his role in relation to the team. Now, obviously, he has a very large team of very accomplished forensic accountants and people who are used to following Byzantine webs of money and so forth. So he's had to, as the head of the investigation, be the magician who pulls together all these forces. Right, so reminding you, the magician has control over all the elements. So that's all the suits of the tarot, but symbolically, he's the one bringing all the strands of the investigations together. As I hinted at the beginning, he's thinking very deeply about his role, but also this is the card of commerce and trade, so he knows that, how to put this, he knows that the moral mire that a lot of these people operate in is about commerce and trade. They put that before their own morality. So he has to think very deeply about commerce and trade in order to get into these labyrinths of deals that have been made, and they do involve other countries. The implication here with the water is other countries. So the magician is having to hold all this stuff to a certain extent in his head in how to proceed at any point. But he has a vast, very competent team. Now this is the pierced heart, and it's in the current row. I'm not surprised on some level, although he's very professional and he will continue to do this. I think he has been hurt on some levels by the degree and the fierceness of the opposition to the investigation. He's very worried on one level about what is being said about the investigation. But although it's a heart implying a person, I think he's more concerned about the investigation being sabotaged or skewered rather than just his own reputation. He doesn't strike me as someone who gets his jollies off just his ego. He'd be devastated at the risk of this investigation being closed down. Now, coming up, he is in charge of investigating these rip-offs. He specializes, if you like, in looking at how these deals were made, who got away with what. Bear in mind with this figure, with the Seven of Swords, ironically, there's almost a Cossack sort of dress to this. There's sort of almost a Russian feel on some level. Here, this is his short-term outcome column. Death. Now remember, any tarot reader worth their salt will tell you that death doesn't signify the mortal death of the person, so I'm not suggesting Bob Mueller's going to drop with a heart attack or anything like that. It's more about the death of an old way of doing business. He's doing his best, in a way, to expose what has gone on in the name of America by these giants of corporate America, but also it's bigger than America itself. It's about the world. But he is penetrating, if you look at these cards together, the stealth. This is the stealth card. And we keep getting this in any of the Trump-related readings. Family, money. So he's not only having to look at the international connections of big business, it's the very intricate ways that families through trusts and hedge funds and so on, hide their money. And I think, because it's next to the heart, I think he finds this quite stressful. It's more stressful for him than just following the corporate line. The family money is very challenging, and he would have to weigh up in some cases whether he's going to bring charges against other family members. So as an example that springs to my mind, it is one thing if he goes ahead and indicts Jared Kushner, but does he go for Ivanka, family money? Now, I don't doubt for 1 second that she hasn't been as involved as her husband in lots of things, but it becomes very complex, not just a gendered issue, but family issues generally. Now, he has to make a decision about Flynn's son as well, and so forth. So I think he finds this angle, the family stuff, when these people who own big fortunes, and remember there's that old saying, behind every great fortune there's a great crime, if not a lot of crime. The fairies don't make these fortunes. They're often the product of criminal endeavours. That's the aspect that Mueller himself finds the hardest. So I'm just going to go out from there. The Lover's card. Okay. So given we're not talking about romance in terms of these readings, I think for Mueller at this time, he is brokering a feeling of trust within his team. Now, don't forget the team have been under enormous pressure and assault. So his leadership is extremely important now, in a way more so than it was when he first started. He has to keep his team together, and they have to trust him, and he has to trust them. So I think his immediate priorities now are in keeping his team on side, buoyant, and letting them feel well supported by him. The Empress. Ironically, I was talking about Ivanka. It often comes up for Ivanka. I don't think so in this case. I suspect the Empress is Bob Mueller's wife, or perhaps a sister. In any event, there's a woman in Bob Mueller's life who's keeping him sane, who's helping him keep his sense of humour, who is helping him keep his integrity. So I think if you ran into Robert Mueller in some sort of context and you had a private moment and you could actually say to him, who is keeping you going, Bob? I think he'd name this person. I don't know who it is, but there's a woman in his life, underlying everything, who's the one who's keeping him going. So I'm going to finish there for Bob Mueller. He is going to keep going, and bless him, it could not be a harder gig. So I'm going to be doing more readings around the Mueller investigation, but I just wanted to see how he was going himself. So the main things to take away are he's feeling it's very important to keep his team's morale up because they're under such assault. But there's a woman in his life who's helping. Okay, bye for now. Another reading coming soon.